Horror Minute is rated R. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is also rated R. We're going to spend this time discussing the movie in gory detail, and along the road we will talk about some adult content and use some of our favorite swear words.
Cazzo, Madonna, che palle!
Consider yourselves warned.
Welcome to Rocky Horror Minute, the podcast where we discuss the Rocky Horror Picture Show, one agonizing minute at a time. I'm your host, Kelly.
And I'm your other host, Leandra.
And today we're discussing minute 19 of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Leandra, what happens in minute 19?
In minute 19, we have a lot of fun stuff that happens. It picks up right where the last minute left off, with Riff Raff looking at Janet and saying, "You're wet." She says, "Yes, it's raining." Then a series of people say yes, and then yes, and then yes. Then Riff Raff responds to lightning illuminating a long line of motorcycles by saying, "I think perhaps you'd better both come inside." Janet says, "You're too kind." They enter the castle, and we see, if you're squinting, if you're ready to see this, we see a domestic that is just kind of lounging on the banister about halfway up the flight of stairs. Then Brad and Janet obscure that sight for our viewers, and Janet says, "Oh, Brad, I'm frightened. What kind of a place is this?" And Brad says, "Oh, it's probably some kind of hunting lodge for rich weirdos." Riff closes the door and then locks it behind them and looks at Brad and Janet, pushes through them, and says, "This way." And then he bounces his thumb.
So again, I love Janet's Janet. So Janet and Brad are both like good Midwestern Protestant people who have clearly been raised right, but Brad's manners are holding up a lot better than Janet's even now. And I know Leandra's the same way. I was raised that no matter what happens, you keep a smile on and you be polite. And
Yep.
Janet's trying, but she is not doing it. So yeah, the way she tries to communicate to Brad after she says, "Yes, it's raining," and she looks at him, she gives him that look that you give your partner when you're like, "We need to get the fuck out of here," you know. So that's great. And I also just wanted to ask, what about the initial entering the castle freaked Janet out so badly as to make her go, "Brad, I'm frightened. What kind of a place is this?" Because honestly, apart from magenta on the banister, which I guess could be what she's referring to, I'm not sure what about the entrance of that room was so freaky to her.
You can sort of hear, at least in the movie, you can hear there's music coming from another room. But it doesn't
That's
seem like spooky music. It seems like very convivial music.
yeah.
So I don't know that that would be it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing about the scene that greets them when they open the door that would be at all raising a red flag for me would be the person on the banister. And admittedly, that is weird. But I don't think it would make me go, "What kind of a place is this?" You know? It'd be more like, "Oh, the maid passed out." Has this
Oh, the
ever
maid.
happened to you?
I don't know. If I'm putting myself in Janet's shoes, the person who opens the door and greets them is this incredibly gaunt, crack-headed looking individual who kind of seems like he doesn't want to let me in, and then quickly changes his mind when we see that there are a bunch of motorcycles. So he's kind of telling us that we need to come in at that point, and then we go inside, and the entire castle is filled with like cobwebs and dust, and it's kind of creepy looking. I guess she might be concerned because that doesn't look like the type of place a person would live.
That's fair. That is fair. And that might explain why, because I've always thought it was funny that she seems so comforted when Brad says, "Well, it's probably some kind of hunting lodge for rich weirdos," and then she just goes, "Oh, like, oh, well, that's fine then, as long
Yeah.
as it's just a hunting lodge for rich weirdos." Which to me, I'd be like, well, I would like to leave that place very much. So yeah, I guess if that makes more sense in context too, if it's the general like not seeming like a place of residence that's freaking her out.
Yeah. And I think that when you go to a mansion that looks like that, if you walk in, you're kind of hoping that it's going to look just as nice on the inside as the outside. And it
Yeah,
does
I mean,
now.
yeah, that's true. Apparently, as we know, it's a hotel now.
So the doors of Oakley Court, not all of them, but the big ornate doors that we're going to see in the next minute, and several other things were thrown out during renovations, which is a shame because
Oh
a lot of
no.
the stuff was quite gorgeous. I've known a couple of people who have taken a banister photo at Oakley Court. I'm pretty sure that if I had a way of guessing what I would say in a future minute, that I might have said that the banister had been renovated and also thrown out. That is not true. I have looked extensively at the new banister and the original banister, and it looks like perhaps that banister was just refurbished. So if future Leandra happens to say that, then please rest assured that she is on crack.
Well, if you ever were to say that, that's how we would know that you are not the real Leandra, because the real Leandra knows that's not true. So we should kill you if we hear you say that, because you're a replicant. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're really great at these multiple timelines things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Time warp.
Other things to throw out there about just what we see when we enter the castle. There's multiple taxidermied heads of animals on the wall on the second floor next to the stairs. You can also see kind of further away in this great hall that there's something under a dome that's covered in dust. There's taxidermied bird of prey. You'll see all of this in great detail in the next scene that happens in this room. This is yet again a freezing cold room. You see that Brad and Janet are still soaking wet, and you can see their breaths. There's also a lamp that's above the foyer door that's very interesting. It's like chandelier, but has a lamp shade on it, so it gives this warmer, softer color. There's also another lamp facing the doors. When they first enter, it's some sort of gold colored statue of a robed figure holding a torch, and the torch is the lamp. So if you're not watching this along with this minute, think of it kind of like a knockoff version of the Statue of Liberty. The last thing we see in this minute are the ornate and decorative rungs of the stairs rails. That I think actually is wrought iron. That's all of the castle specific descriptions that I have. I have, of course, dug a little bit further into Riffraff's costuming. A lot of this I took from the Ruth's Anal Retentive Rocky Horror Costuming website, something that I've been looking at since, I don't know, probably 2005. Ruth is a fantastic person. I've met her at a couple of cons now, and she is just incredibly fun to be around, super knowledgeable, and love her to bits and pieces. All that being said, the tailcoat has peak lapels and is short in front with swallowtail tails. It has been distressed and messed up. The vest is very cool too. There's blood drips on it. He definitely has a hump or something, at least occasionally. In in the beginning of the show, the hump is far more prominent. As the movie progresses, we lose the hunchback aspect of Riffraff a little bit.
Yeah.
So, more about the vest. It is a blood-stained, backless, low-cut white peak tuxedo vest in a waistcoat style with narrow lapels. It has three white plastic buttons. One button is used to button it up at any given time. Just one. It changes from scene to scene. That's very irritating as a riffraff. And he's wearing half finger leather black gloves with mesh backs, so kind of like a weightlifting glove. The pants are semi close fitting black pants. The left leg is laced with white lacing about a third of the way to the knee, and the right leg is laced the same way but with black lacing. I have some leggings that I just added grommets to, and I laced it up myself, and it works just fine for me. We've talked about a fair amount of this, but just wanted to talk a little bit more about his shoes. We'll talk about the shoes in much greater detail later on when we see them in a nice close up. But on one of the shoes is one white spat that's blood-stained, and he wears it on his right foot. A spat, for those of you who may not know, is a fabric cover for the top and side of your shoe. It's usually not covering the toe. They had a functional purpose in that they protected shoes and socks from water. They're also very decorative, but we don't use them as much now for, I think, fairly obvious reasons. We don't do as much walking around out of doors in the rain, extended distances. And it was something that was out of style once we stopped getting into such formal wear. We've become a more casual society, and if you talk with people who care about historical fashion, they think that that is a crying shame. I'm not one of those people. I wear pajamas every day, so I'm fine with that. Otherwise, I think that those are all of the notes that I have about this minute. Did you want to go over some callbacks?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some good ones for this.
Ooh.
Now, when he says you're wet, I know there's something for that, but I don't remember what it is. Do you recall?
It is.
Not the waterproof vibrator one, but something about her like
Look
being wet.
between Janet's legs.
Something like that, yeah.
That's the one that I've heard.
Yeah, so look between Janet's legs, and then he'd say, "You're wet." Now, what I prefer is, "Janet, did you bring your waterproof vibrator?" And then she says, "Yes." And you say, "Why?" And she says, "It's raining." And then right from there, you can go into, "Brad, are you gay?" He says, "Yes." "Riff, are you gay?" He says, "Yes." And then you say, "God, are you gay?" And then there's a lightning crash. And you yell, "Jesus Christ, it was just a question."
I like that one pretty well, but there's a way to vary it so that it adds a little bit more. I don't even know that you could say it adds more humor. It adds variety. So
I,
you could instead say, Brad, are you an asshole? Riff, do you fuck your sister? God, are you gay? Shit, I was kidding.
that's fun. Yeah, that's fun too.
Yeah, there are
Cool.
options.
Yeah. So when he says, "I think you perhaps you'd better both come inside," I can't come that far. That's one I've heard. There's future callbacks that sort of tie into that one. Then I always hear this one is Brad, show us how a butterfly masturbates before he does this weird, like, fluttering shake of his collar to get the rain off. Now, not a favorite of mine because, in my opinion, it makes very little sense. Why a butterfly would masturbate by, I guess, gripping each of its wings like that?
Well, he does the fluttering of the jacket to kind of get some of the water off of it, and then the rest of that callback should be, that's right, with both wings. So
I see.
adding
I
that
hadn't ever
in,
heard that. I guess that makes more sense.
yeah, adding that in, you kind of get the context that that if we're talking about this imaginary butterfly, it is, I guess, flapping its wings in such a way that it is also knocking its bits.
I see. Okay, you know what? I've come around on that one, but only if you say the second part. I've never heard the second part. And then a great one. So for just a split second, when they walk in, you see Magenta on the banister, and she's kind of blending in, and then Janet steps into view and blocks her. So the callback is, "Can you spot the hidden domestic in this picture?" And the response is, "No, there's a slut in the way," as that happens. And I've heard a few things when he says hunting lodge for rich weirdos. I've heard like the White House, which not really a hunting lodge, but I get it. Presidents being rich weirdos. Occasionally at our show, since Donald Trump has been president, I've heard like Mar-a-Lago, which I like better, but which is obviously going to get eventually at least going to be obsolete.
Yep, that
And
would be
then,
great.
yeah, it would be great. And then we have Riff, "Show us how you finger your sister," and that then he goes this way, and then he does kind of the bouncing thumb and everything, and that beckoning. So those are the ones I have.
And I think that those are the main ones. I have a couple of other kind of oldies but goodies and some regional ones. The first one is, just for context, there's a coffee shop in a shopping district in Edmonton, Alberta. That's in Canada, for those of you who don't do geography. It's where the bikers hang out in the summer. So when the lightning illuminates the bikes outside, the callback at the Edmonton cast is, it's Tim Hortons on White Ave. The the more standard oldie but goodie, when you see the gigantic line of motorcycles, is somewhat on the nose, but I do like callbacks like that. You're supposed to say, "You weren't supposed to see that." This is a callback that sounds funnier if you've seen the Rocky Horror Show, but I still think that it's funny on its own. Janet says, "You're too kind." And in the Rocky Horror Show, Riff Raff immediately repeats that, mimicking her. I like, "You're too kind. You're too kind." That's what you sound like. And then, "I think you'd better both come inside." My favorite of the long callbacks for this are, "I don't care where you come as long as you clean it up. I don't care if you clean it up as long as you come. I don't care if you come as long as I come."
Yes, that
And
is
then
one I've heard as well.
when Brad says, "Some kind of hunting lodge for rich weirdos," you say, "Yay, rich weirdos. Yay, poor weirdos. Yay, us." Or, this is an oldie but a goodie, "Rich weirdos aren't in season, asshole."
I like that a lot. That's good.
Yeah, that's one from the vaults, I guess you could say.
Oh, that's my favorite Grateful Dead album.
Wow, I thought that was a trick question because they all suck.
Dan, I'm sorry. Dan's
But
a deadhead, right?
yes, he is.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's a good one. I love it.
But that is really all I had. So, do you have anything else that you wanted to touch on in this minute 19?
No, I don't think I have anything else I wanted to touch on.
That was pretty great.
Pretty, yep, I would say hilarious, iconic, genius, even.
Those are words that you might say. But let's go ahead and end this before it gets too silly.
Too late.
Yeah. But we'll end this the same way that we end all of our shows with now.
Now,
Hello, Dan.
you
You don't
have
have
to
to
go
go
home,
home, but you can't stay here, so get the fuck out. Ah.
You are like a little baby.
I am like a little baby, a sexy little baby. And you gave me a hickey. Please don't record that.